Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
You know, the funny thing is, I was just thinking the other day, you guys have come from seemingly out of nowhere, and all of a sudden you're running a media group yourself. And I think that the SHR Media Group is really going somewhere. So I was kind of curious, where did you guys come from? How did you guys meet? I mean, you had to meet somewhere, and you got together, and you went from wherever you started until where you are now. How did that happen?
It's kind of funny because we were actually just talking about doing kind of a retro throwback show over a cup of coffee.
Yes,
like live at a coffee shop,
which is how this all started.
Which is kind of how this all started. Sean and I, we've known each other for. Yeah, how long now? 10 years?
Well, real quick, let's throw out some introductions, just so everyone knows who's who.
Oh.
The Bloviating Zeppelin.
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Sackhead Clint.
Hello.
Sackhead Sean.
Say hello.
Hello.
There you go.
We're the two original founders of the Sackheads radio show and SHR Media, along with Sacco. Mm-hmm. And like you said, we were just kind of talking about, hey, we need to do a retro show, and we decided why not record it for our own benefit and prosperity.
And the way this came about is we're talking about it, and BC goes, well, wait a second. Like, what was your first show? And so that's what kind of prompted this discussion. And so collectively, we figured we should have the discussion live for posterity purposes, because I think it's a cool story.
Well, someday you're gonna want to come back and look at this and remember all this good stuff. So, what was your first show?
It was funny. So we met over, like, literally we would just hang out 10 years ago, Sean?
Yes.
Or more than that. We've known each other.
Yeah, it's getting on 11 now.
We would literally just hang out and drink coffee. We knew each other because we used to work kind of in the same area. And we just run into each other at coffee all the time. Work together on a few projects.
Yep.
And we
totally impromptu.
Totally impromptu, and we just start bullshitting, for lack of a better term. We just and he'd go, God damn it, blah, 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 and he'd go off on a rant, and I'd be like, yeah, and I'd go off on a rant, and there was a good friend of ours, Vern.
Well, who wasn't at the time? We didn't really know her.
Right, and she'd been in media before, and she was not a conservative
at all.
She is not a conservative, but she just thought we were funny, and we are.
And you are.
We are. She thought we were hilarious. And she pushed us. She would always tell us, you guys need to do a show. You guys need to do something. I would listen to this, and I'm not conservative. And we were like, who wants to hear a couple jackasses talk?
Because you got to understand, too, to set this up a little bit, when you're two conservatives in California, you feel like nobody else is around, right? So we were even more convinced that we were like the outcasts that found each other.
Right.
And it started to really just get funny at that point because she kept pushing us for a couple months, almost a year.
Almost a year, yeah.
Every single time she'd see us having coffee, and she worked in the same area, she would just start, hey, guys, you got to do something with this. You really got to do something with this. And we were like, probably not.
We're not outgoing enough.
Right. We don't have a personality for this.
Yeah.
And we didn't for the radio portion side. We'd never done it before. We never sat in front of a mic and talked. We didn't know what a podcast was. I didn't know.
We didn't care.
Anything. Right. It was so far out, and she kept mentioning podcasts. And I was like, is it about beans? I don't understand what a podcast is.
Right, do we throw beans?
The technology was new. iTunes wasn't really around yet. We didn't know how to do any of that crap. Mm-mm. So what ended up happening was I got hurt.
Yeah.
I tore some ligaments in my knee, and I had to get replaced. And at that point, Clint and I had become very close. And he said, hey, dude, you're going to be down for a few weeks. I'll swing by, bring you coffee, hang out with you at the house, whatever you need, take care of. And I was like, yeah, great. So as I was getting ready to go to the surgery, I was thinking more and more about this podcast thing. And I'm like, podcast? So I started doing a little research.
I think your exact quote was, dude, I'm not going to be able to freaking do anything. Why don't we just give it a shot? I think is a direct quote.
Almost
a direct quote.
So I figured out how to record with a computer and a singular microphone. and I figured out how to upload to a couple of the free podcast websites that were popping up. Podbean's one of them. Libsyn was another one.
I think it was Libsyn.
Libsyn was another big one. So we would just figure, what the hell? So he comes to the house a couple of days after my surgery, and the medicine cleared my system. And we sat down, we're drinking coffee, and I had my little tiny laptop that was grossly underpowered for what we were trying to do, and a headset that was like a Skype gaming headset. It wasn't a microphone for broadcasting. It was a headset with a boom mic that you would use for like Skyping.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And we were sharing this.
We were handing it back and forth. At one point, I think we propped it up on like a book and balanced it on something else. It was kind of between us.
Very professional.
So it was almost like we were going to kiss every single time we were trying to talk. And we said,
Which wasn't weird, which I actually thought was
I thought it would be a little bit more
I thought it would be
awkward
more
than it was.
awkward, too, and it wasn't.
Yeah, but
And we
I
made
am-
eye contact a lot, too.
Yes.
It was
I am
kind
getting an image out of that.
Yeah. No, you should.
I was a lot thinner and had more hair.
On your chest.
On my chest, yes. So we were like, well, what would we do a podcast about? Well, we both like history. We both are conservatives. We both follow politics pretty closely. But we said, we had no idea. So we figured we'd pick a person, pick a character, somebody from history that we could just kind of comment on. So
And we named it.
we did.
We called it Badasses of American History.
That was the name of that one
Great
segment.
name.
That was the name of that segment.
So we pick a guy by the name of Samuel Whittemore, who is the state hero of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Samuel Whittemore, at the age of like 78 or something like that, was working in his field during the American Revolution. He was part of the British Army in his youth and then became a colonial. And as a group of grenadiers was coming back from one of the battles in Lexington, he was all by himself at 70-something years old. There's 3 or 4 grenadiers are walking down the road, and he decides he's going to engage them. He had 2 axes and his musket.
Yeah.
Long story short, he kills all 4 of them, ends up with 2 gunshot wounds or musket
Multiple
shots.
gunshot
Yep.
wounds, I think, yeah.
And stab wounds from bayonet.
And was beaten.
And was beaten and left for dead by
Yeah.
like the one remaining soldier that made it through. And he lives to the ripe old age of 92. Took out a whole group of grenadiers by himself. So that's the guy we talked about. We're like, hey, this is a great feel-good American story,
Yeah.
right? That's American spirit right there.
Badass American History. We got a title. We're good.
So then we uploaded that, and we uploaded 1 or 2 other ones. We did
Iran.
yeah, a new story about Iran and something else. It was when the Iranian was it the rise of when the Iranians were trying to rise or whatever. It didn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
But we did it.
Ira, gonna do something. It doesn't matter.
Ira not going to talk about it.
Right.
So we upload these like couple 15-minute podcasts. Well, all of a sudden people started downloading it, and no social media.
Nope.
I barely knew what Facebook was. I'd never heard of Twitter. None of that stuff.
No advertising.
No advertising, nothing. It was just where the communities in which that we were posting it to were searching for things, and we tag it. I learned how to tag things, and people were listening and sharing it. And I'm watching numbers kind of go up a little bit, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why would anybody want to listen to us?
We thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, we were-
we were laughing about it, like high fiving each other like a couple of school
We're
kids.
stars.
Yeah, so we
It was funny.
Flash forward to late Saturday nights. We were the only time we could schedule between our 2 schedules to get together.
Yeah.
And we were like, all right, let's start doing a little bit more. So we start recording longer ones, and then we find Blog Talk Radio.
And so I want to kind of. So we have at that point we were in a place called
The Cave.
The Cave.
My office at the time.
It was Sean's office at the time, and we named it The Cave, which was actually a pretty good name considering the space we were in. It had a ninja exit.
It would have been better for the second spot, but
It would
have.
For what we had, it had a ninja exit.
Yep.
Remember?
Yeah, so when I got into this office, one of the ceiling tiles, I was in there for 8 years? One
Yeah.
of the ceiling tiles in the corner was off and just slid to the side slightly. And I never fixed it. All I did was print out a document that said ninja exit only and taped it to it.
Nice.
And that was the running joke for the longest time, right? And so many people come in and say, why haven't you fixed that? I'm like, because it's the ninja exit. So we started recording with 1 microphone in there. I went out and bought a little USB mic for a computer. And then I found a way, because one of the things that Blog Talk at the time wouldn't allow you to do is have 2 mic inputs, or the computer, just because of the way it works. So I found a way to kind of sidestep that a little bit and be able to broadcast 2 mics so we could actually be more than 2 feet from each other. And we found Blog Talk Radio. one of our first shows on Blog Talk, we were doing these little 30-minute segments here and there because we didn't want to pay for it, and it was free to do like 30 seconds once a week.
And we didn't think of anything to really do in 30 minutes other than destroy the political career.
Yes. We got to that eventually. I don't want to jump that because that's one of the best stories we have. But on our first broadcast, all of a sudden this guy comes into our chat room at Blog Talk Radio named Ken McClinton. And it wasn't even that. It was the exceptional conservative was his login in the chat room. And he starts interacting with us via the chat. So we said, hey, call in because you can take phone calls over at Blog Talk. And he called in, and what was supposed to be 30 minutes turned into like an hour.
But let me set the scene.
Okay.
So we're sitting there, and there was like the show before, we had just a lunatic call in.
Lunatic.
A complete lunatic call in.
It was great.
We thought it was hilarious.
I mean, literally the ramblings of a madman.
So fast forward now.
And I was answering any line that would ring because I was like, all right, but who cares?
Makes good radio.
So fast forward now to Ken. Ken calls in, and it is literally a, hey, where the white women at? Kind of a voice and interaction. And we look at each other, and we immediately think we have another lunatic.
We were right.
We immediately think that there's somebody smoking crack cocaine, just whacked out of their mind, up late, wanting to hear jackassery. And so that's what we thought we had. And it wasn't until like a couple shows later when Ken reverted to himself and was like going off in a very intelligent, well thought out way. And
so
we're like,
amazing. We had no idea. The first few shows, it was all jokes,
It
right?
was all jokes.
We didn't even know anything about him, really, other than we were having fun. And then we were on a subject. I couldn't tell you what the subject was. And all of a sudden, I recognized the phone number as it rang, and I'm like, Ken's calling, and this will be funny. Click it, and all of a sudden, he throws out a "Where's the white women at?" And then all of a sudden, he's the serious guy. And we were blown away. We figured he was a smart guy, right? I mean, you talk to Ken, it's not hard to figure out he's smart. But to the level of intelligence, we were dumbfounded.
Dude, he's like schizoid.
Yeah.
We had no idea who he was or what, like, really to the level he was, that he had his own show.
Right, and I had listened to his shows and everything, but I never really put the connection together that was the same guy that was calling in.
Right.
So I had listened to his show before I knew it was him who was calling in and literally just screwing with us.
And it was so
different. Which is all he was doing.
Yes. Yes, it was literally like, like we're us no matter where we are, right?
Right.
Ken is different when he comes on the Sackheads.
Oh, because he can let loose.
Because he can totally let loose.
He can let his afro down.
And he can take the pick out.
I'd like to see that.
So we start picking up these we start going on once a week, no matter what, hella high water.
Yep.
And we moved up to an hour. And then we started getting interviews, which we weren't expecting. One of the first ones we did outside of Ken, after Ken, I should say, is our friend Andrea Kay.
Yep.
Tammy J. All these people we started meeting through. At this point, I discovered social media.
That we've really kind of grown up with.
Absolutely have. I discovered social media. I'm making these contacts in the social media world. So it's going great.
And I want to point some out. So at this point, Sean's kind of discovering the whole social media aspect of things. Well, when we're pulling stories, I am literally still coming in at this point with 2 sets of papers with stories stapled together, 2 exact duplicate copies of stories, because we didn't have additional computers to have a bunch of tabs open to go through things while we talk like we have.
So we'd
now.
print them out at home and carry them in.
So literally,
sounds good.
I would walk into the office and I'd throw a stack down on Sean's desk, and I'd have a stack at my desk, and we'd go through the stories, and that's kind of how we produced the show. Really, that's kind of how the topics were being done at the time.
Yep.
And you could probably go back and hear the rufflings of.
Oh gosh, everywhere.
While we're trying to figure out topics and cross-reference stuff, and so we'd each have these heads. Sean would go through and highlight things in his, and I'd highlight things in mine. So we had our talking points. So we were really archaic. So Sean's now trying to grow leaps and bounds. I'm perfectly happy with paper.
Right.
We all know this.
And
I
I'm
have
like,
a
no,
whiteboard.
we have to advance. Because
Right.
now I've become indulged into electronics.
Yes.
And how it could benefit us, right? So then we start, out of the blue, we're getting into the election cycle for 04.
Yeah.
For 04. For Obama's first run. 08, Obama's first run. That was our first one.
Yes.
So
Yes, it was.
we're getting into that election cycle, and out of the blue, I said, hey, somebody said, oh, there's this woman running for Congress in Florida against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and she's kind of the front runner. And I don't know how, why, or whatever, but I reached out to her, and her people called me back.
I thought they reached out to us.
Wait, no, everybody else did. We reached out to her, Miss Harrington.
Yes.
And she came on. It was very gracious with her time.
Mm-hmm.
I had to figure out how to record because it wasn't while we were live, all this other stuff. So literally for like 2 weeks prior, I was going crazy on how we were going to figure this out. Figure it out. She comes on. She was amazing. And a great politician.
She was.
'Cause she wasn't a politician.
Yeah, she was. She was awesome.
I wish that she had done a lot more, and I wish she was still running. But and then all of a sudden, everybody else in that district who was a Republican that was running against her for the primary that she ended up winning, it was the 23rd, the Florida 23rd, reaches out to us for interviews out of the blue. Mm-hmm. Joe Kaufman, who's still very much around, really good guy. He's on social media. He ran. Joe was a great interview.
He was.
Really smart, good conservative, good, really good constitutional knowledge. And there was two other guys. One of them, everybody said, was a paid plant by the Democrats to try to offset Harrington because she was getting some steam. And then there was this other guy. I can't remember.
I don't
his
remember
name to
his
save my
name.
life, but he was running as a conservative as well, and he begged us to come on. And we single-handedly destroyed his campaign.
Absolutely.
Because he came on and started talking about the Constitution and specifically Second Amendment and started talking about how it's okay to limit the Second Amendment to certain points. And we eviscerated him.
Yeah, and he tried making a point. I believe we also asked him about the 17th Amendment.
Yes.
And the 16th Amendment.
Yes.
And the guy had absolutely no idea. So not only did he not have any idea about the Constitution, he's running for United States federal office, but he gets eviscerated by two known. And we
couple of guys.
we had our questions. Yeah, we had our questions. Like if he listened to the other interviews,
he would have known what was
he
coming.
would have known the tone of the interview. And it's not that we were adversarial. Well, with him, we ultimately were basically.
Well, he led us down an adversarial road.
Right.
Because he was so far on the other side of the Constitution that we couldn't help it.
Right. I mean, he literally had he had very little knowledge of
anything,
and we made him look like it, not on purpose, but it's just being a good interview.
It was to the point that we could hear somebody whispering in the background into his ear, trying to help him with answers.
And I think we called him out on that.
Yeah, because we asked who else was in the room. Is there somebody else there with you?
Well,
That's your kid.
What? No.
And we, like I said, we didn't know anything about interviewing people. We didn't know anything about media. We were just pissed.
Yes.
Right? Here's this guy claiming to be a conservative. He doesn't know the Constitution, and he's having somebody feed him answers. 2 days later, he dropped out of the race.
His numbers tanked.
And his interview numbers on our Blog Talk downloads spiked.
Yes.
So we saw the correlation. So then we said, hey, maybe we are onto something a little bit. We don't do a lot of interviews.
Okay, well, I got a question for you. When he tanked out of that, do you know, or did you ever find out whether your interview with him was pivotal in his going down?
I know our interview is passed around local media quite a bit.
Yes.
I know that for a fact because afterwards, Miss Harrington reached out to us and said, "Hey, I don't know if you guys know this, but you got a lot of local play around here on the show.
Yeah.
For your interview." So I was pretty. We just said we got something going on here. We don't know what the hell it is. So you flash forward. We're a little bit bigger. We bring Sacco in to start helping us with some sound engineer. Little 4-channel soundboard.
I think we moved studios at that point.
We had moved down to the cave.
So we were from the cave and we were over in Studio A.
Studio A.
Yep.
So we start with this little soundboard, and we're renting a closet.
Literally.
We were renting a closet in a business we were subletting where we had to run a 100-foot Cat 5 cable down a hallway in order to reach our computers for internet.
So so let me set the scene here, because this was amazing. We literally had a closet, right? And we stapled a bunch of soundproofing, like egg crate stuff, kind of up in there. Remember that?
Everywhere.
And I'm not talking like the cool stuff we kind of have in here right now, like the gray stuff. I'm talking like the stained, yellowish, off-white egg crate that we got from
Craigslist
or something. We'd like
for like $3.
Yeah.
There were the sleeping mats that you'd put down on like under sleeping bags to go camping on.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It was amazing. So, and we would literally run this cable,
100-foot USB cable.
Yep.
And the connection was bad, so sometimes the show would just drop.
That's always good for
and
business.
We'd have to start everything over, and we were still on Blog Talk, and we started having Sacco help screen calls and do production, and our sound got a little bit better, not great.
He was out at a fold-up table outside the door
doing
because
everything.
our closet couldn't fit
We
him.
were so small we couldn't get 3 people in.
So we had a phone line running out the closet.
That's cheesy.
On his little. Oh no, this was amazing. Are you kidding me?
Still once a week, late at night,
Yep.
just like we do now, and. So
above a comic book store,
and a massage parlor.
Yep.
So as time,
it just keeps getting better.
It's Sackhead style, though.
It's
really,
rags
right?
to riches, right?
Yeah.
So
to riches.
Well, it's rags to mediocrity,
right?
So after we're there for a while, we jump on to Live 365.
Yeah.
And we meet our good friend John, who runs the 405 Media.
Radio, yeah.
And we met him through Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, he contacts us out of the blue and says, hey, we'd love to have you on the show to talk about your show. And it was one of those things that I think he was expecting a bigger history out of us. Like, hey, I went to school for broadcasting. I did this. I did that.
Yeah.
Because the questions he were asking were almost about, like, your knowledge in the field. And a lot of times we were like, yeah, we don't know. We're just two idiots. And we literally said, we're just two idiots who have a show. Right? And God bless John, because he's still our friend, and he's still a wonderful guy.
And he was like dumbfounded.
Yes.
But see, here we were so naive.
Was on too.
We were so naive, we didn't care. Like, we probably looked like total freaking knuckleheads, but we were like, hey, this is us. And,
you think we don't care now about what we say? It was worse
back then.
Because we discovered, like, we do have a semi-diverse audience now. Age is usually the biggest issue for us, because the jokes, we didn't care. We had no filter, right?
We still don't really have. Our filter is not thick at all.
We don't have a filter now, but we stay more focused on point.
Yes, we do.
Whereas back then, we didn't care.
We didn't care. It was general jackassery for a full hour.
Right. We'd literally have the stack of topics on the table.
We were still doing paper.
Yeah, we were still doing paper. We would crumple one up and throw it at each other, and we'd open it, and that would be the topic we were going to go to. We had no real planning on the matter.
It was awesome.
Or you never got to the topic.
No, what are you talking about? That's a plan.
It was like topic roulette.
Yes. I think we even named it that. Did we not at one point? I think
we called it our topic, Russian topic roulette.
Russian topic roulette. Only if Russia was in there.
Right. So then we started getting a little bit more, and we decided we need our own website, which Sacco helped us out with. We need to get a better outlet. So,
and right around this time, I don't mean to interrupt, Sean, but we really kind of really had more well-developed roles.
Yes.
Right around this time.
We started to actually come up with...
Sacco was clearly our sound and our tech guy, and he was running all of that stuff. Sean was clearly our social media, and Sean's been doing double duty lately. I don't know how you do it, but Sean was really our social media, shaking babies and kissing hands, and really getting out there and really got involved in the tech side through the social media side, getting us out. I was still kind of the topic guy. I was behind the scenes. Content guy.
Yeah.
Hey, sharing stories all week. I don't even think the phones we had you could text a story to.
We'd walk in with handfuls of paper.
It was literally I would print out papers and we'd talk throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
And, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? But print out 2 exact duplicates and we'd roll through and
I'd grab a couple stories if I could, and just whatever we could.
And so we had these defined roles, and that's really kind of where the roles
came from. Yeah,
really kind of came from.
Then we moved down to the silo.
Yes, which I love the silo.
The silo was great. So
that's where the biggest spider I ever saw was.
Yes, that's where that comes from. Was the Black Widow in the silo?
I think it was freaking massive.
What was the silo?
So the silo is In this whole building, there was this giant building. It was like an old warehouse that they segmented out.
With offices.
Down one end was a daycare.
Yep.
In offices. There was a construction down the other end, and then a couple of like storage facilities, and then this tiny office in the middle.
It wasn't that tiny.
Well, in comparison to the others, it was tiny.
Right.
That the building owner was just kind of using to store stuff or whatever, and we were lucky enough to know the building owner, and we said, "Hey, you ever have a space you want to rent out? Let us know." And he was like, "I got this space. What was it? $50 a month?
$50 or yeah,
$50 a month. It's just sitting there. All you have to do is get power turned on. Great. Had a bathroom. Had a front entryway.
Had a little kitchenette thing or something that we made.
Had a studio.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yet.
It actually had a reception area.
Yeah.
And a studio.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty cool.
It was 2 rooms, completely segmented. So we started in there. And that's when we really started to develop relationships. We really started to develop the show. We started to get voiceover work done, intro music done. Sacco was amazing with some of the music he was coming up with.
Sacco had a little studio out front with his instruments or whatever that he would record something literally on site.
And make all the music up for us. And then we started to get a bigger social media following, and the downloads started going up, and the following started going up. But more importantly, people I knew that I didn't know were listening were starting to come up to us and be like, "Hey, dude, I listened to your show the other night on Live 365."
Wait, what?
Yeah, why? Why would you do
that?
Why
would you
waste your time?
You don't have a better way to spend 2 hours? Because I can find a better way to spend 2 hours.
And it was this time also where we really started doing our first event. We went to the Republican convention.
Yep, State Republican Convention
in
San Francisco,
South San Francisco,
South San Francisco,
and Burlingame
Burlingame.
Yep.
But that was another one that we kind of BS'd our way into. So Clint shows up and says, "Hey, the State Republican Convention's in Burlingame. I think we should go." I said, "Okay, great. How do we do that?" But I don't know. So I started doing all this research, and I'm like, "Oh, we need media passes." Well,
we can make those.
Because of the State RNC convention, they charge media to show up, right? And we're like, "Oh, I don't know if we don't have money, and it's not cheap." So we come up with these media passes. We found a template online, and we're like, we're media now. So we produced these 3 media passes for the 3 of us. I start emailing the communications director for the California State RNC. The guy, he's no longer there, and I still keep touch with him. But find out he used to do podcasting back in the day, and so I sent him a show and said, "Hey, we'd be really interested in covering it. However, we can get in. Thanks." So what should have been a pretty high fee to get a table and all this other stuff set up, he's like, "Hey, because you guys are young and it's your first time, this, that, and the other thing, we'll throw it. We'll give it to you, but you know, do us a favor and give the State RNC a little bit of love." We're like, "Great, we can do that." So then came the step of, what the hell do we bring? How do we broadcast from there? What do we broadcast from there? And that's when we found Spreaker.
Yeah.
That's when we first found Spreaker, which is our outlet today, because Live 365 was so burdened. It was just so hard to deal with Live 365 and produce. Spreaker was easy. I just press the button and go, and if Spreaker wants to use this as a commercial, that's fine. We just press the button and go. So we started doing that with updates, and so now here we are with a couple little hand microphones. We have this display set up. We spent all this money at I won't.
No, it was a Groupon.
Yeah, so Groupon was running this deal through one of the printing companies, right?
Yep.
I'm not going to say its name, but one of the big printing companies where, if you spend $25, you get $100 worth of product at this printing company. But you can only do one per person. So we were literally soliciting all of our friends. Here's $25. Buy this and give me the promo code.
Yep.
And we buy all this stuff from this company, get a couple signs printed up, get the flag printed up, pack up our now big soundboard. We had just purchased the soundboard and our couple laptops, and down to Burlingame we went.
With no plan.
No plan whatsoever.
We had zero plan.
That's always
we
the
knew
best
we
way.
had our stuff, and we knew where we were going to Burlingame.
And we had to share a hotel.
It was March 14th to 16th, 2014.
Yes. That was our first road show. So we share this little best Motel 6 motel with literally Sacco sleeping on the floor.
Yep, literally.
And Clint and I have a bed. And we don't know what we're doing. So we show up the first day, and we start doing the fake it till you make it, right?
But everything fell into place. And that's really the cool thing about about how that happened.
Yes.
Is all three of us really just kind of fell into
Our roles.
We
just knew what our roles was. So, and it was one of those things that we started meeting the people from the Cal RNC, and God bless them, they were wonderful to us. Way better than they should have been, probably. We were on.
We were pretty good to them too.
Well, of course,
and we've
were.
made some lifelong friends.
Absolutely,
as
have.
well.
Man, wonderful people.
Yes.
So we get this booth and we start setting it up. So we start coming up with all these zany ideas of just different things that we can just do. So we were having people come up and Sokka would let them record 5 minutes about why they wanted to be at the RNC. We were going around just literally people at booths like, hey, what's this for? Come interview with us. Like just dragging them back by the arm, kind of like, And then...
And it was there, the three ladies came up to us and they're like, oh my God, the Sackheads.
Yes.
We love you guys. And we're like...
Never met them before in our lives. Yes.
Yes.
These three random women. Somebody actually knew who we were, right? So we signed autographs.
We signed out. We took they wanted our picture.
Yes. And we signed autographs.
Yes.
And that's still out there somewhere.
We did.
So the first day we're there, we've never done a political convention. We don't know what media does at these things other than get in the way, right? So we're sitting there and we're starving. Remember this? We're sitting there starving, right? And the food upstairs was like 30. It's a hotel room with the convention. It's like $30 a plate for lousy food. I mean, it's hotel food, right? And all of a sudden, I'm talking to Rosie, this girl Rosie that was working the event, who I still keep touch with because she's just awesome. And I'm like, yeah, well, there was something going on in the media room, and I'm like, hey, we're gonna go into the media room, like. I thought she'd turn us away. Even though we had the pass, like, we still think we're the outsider. And she's like, oh, yeah, well, if you want to eat before you go in or you want to bring food in, there's this whole spread. And there's this line of food, like you wouldn't believe, that's media only.
Yeah.
Huge layout of food.
And we're looking over our shoulder.
Thinking, cool.
No, we were looking at it like two fat kids at a buffet.
Right.
We're like, oh, well, and then I was waiting for them to stop us, so I kept loading up.
Pass up and keep looking and ignore them. And
we
they're
did
like,
it-
oh, okay. We did it everywhere.
So, and I can't remember the gal's name, but we met a gal who was also kind of a blogger on herself that had a media pass. So we were kind of hanging out with her, and she was like, oh, I've done this and I've done that, but I don't know. And this. So
She loved us.
she was awesome,
She
too.
was
I wish I
awesome.
could remember. I feel horrible that I don't at the moment. But so we start covering the sessions and just different things around the event. And then all of a sudden we find out that Pete Sessions was going to be there and do a media question only.
Yeah.
For the RNC, which it's 2004. We know what's going on with
2014.
2014, sorry. We know where we've been with Obama. We know that it's the midterms. The midterms were going to be huge. Like, we had all these things rolling, right? So
that was a 2012 cycle we started with.
Yes, it was.
Not 8.
So we were just pretty, like, amped up. So all of a sudden we're like, hey, Pete Sessions going to do a Q&A with just media in the media room. Well, fortunately, we had already been in there eating still for like 16 hours straight. Socko, you want to see somebody put down food at a buffet, watch Socko, because that kid ate them out of house and home. But so we go in there, we sit down, and, the alphabet people are there, all the local newspapers, the big newspapers in the state of California are there, all these other people, and we're just kind of like...
And the sackheads.
And the
sackheads. And literally people are looking at us like, who the hell are these guys that are just walking around? And now we figured it out, right? You fake it till you make it. You walk around like you own the place. You own the place. So we sit in there and Clint goes, I'm going to ask Sessions a couple questions. I was like, all right, cool. I'll record it. And, I'll sit in the back or whatever. So you had ABC asking questions. And,
stupid question.
And it was about all this stuff that had nothing to do with it.
Right.
And it was 2000.
And he was getting irritated.
And we were talking about just BS stuff. And then all of a sudden, Clint brings up Russia and the geopolitical aspect of Russia and how it could lead into
another Cold War.
And
is that being discussed on the national level?
And this was 2 years ago. It was after Romney got beat, but brought it up, and everybody else let it die. And it was when Russia invaded Crimea. It was right when Russia invaded Crimea.
Yep.
And none of these media people want to talk about it. And Clint bangs him with it. And Sessions was awesome.
He was.
He stopped everybody, and he took 5 minutes to discuss it with them.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that he seemed kind of interested. So we have this whole huge discussion. They go through this thing, and again, we're both just like, no, it looks good to us. Like, we don't know what the hell we're doing, right? We'll put it out. And then we get outside.
And the media people are looking at us like...
I have a photo.
Like, how'd you get that?
I have a photo of every media person in the room stink-eyeing us. Because I was trying to get a picture of him asking Sessions a follow-up question.
It was so awesome.
And you could see, and some of these media people, like their names I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're on ABC and CBS and MSNBC all the time, where literally, like, they were pissed that he asked that question and got away from their fluff, right? And Sessions was all about it. He was great.
Yeah.
So we go out in the hallway and we're leaving, and Sessions people grab us and say, hey, thank you for asking a good question. Like, we really appreciate it. Now, all the other media people are, like, being kind of held away from Sessions. Sessions there, we say, hey, can we get a couple pictures with them? Yeah, of course. Get a couple pictures with Pete Sessions. We get phone numbers. Hey, follow up whenever you want, blah, 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 blah. And he goes on his way. And that was the biggest name to show up.
And the people are staring at us while all this is happening. They're being held at bay.
And we're sitting there BSing.
And you guys are pulling off the scoop.
Yeah.
So, and then so then as that event goes forward, it ended up being
after
a great
we giggle
event.
down the hall like school kids,
We're
high-fiving each other.
Laughing, right? Killing ourselves laughing. So we get back from the event. We saw Condi Rice speak. We had a couple great people.
Awesome. Yeah.
Remember that one lunatic guy that was running for like state congressman or something? He was out of his mind. He'd been locked up like 10 times, whatever, and he was like literally running around with sandwich boards, handing out flyers. I interviewed him just for fun because I'm like, hey, this is something we would interview.
He was fun,
and he was out of his mind. It was great.
Yeah.
So we flow forward and we start now reaching out a little bit more. Like, all right, we can do something with this.
Okay, one quick question. Is any of that stuff on archive?
Yes, that stuff is on archives. I know where all that is. Absolutely know where all that is. Clint's interview was on an MP3 recorder, and I know where those files are too.
Wouldn't that be fun to listen to again?
Yes, and I keep saying I'm going to go back, but here's what happens. We start getting a little bit bigger, and then just as we're moving here, we meet Danny Butcher, who's with an old outlet, who's now with High Plains Pundit.
And now we're in this place, so we moved from the silo to
Studio One.
Studio One.
And we make this great relationship with Danny. Ken's already a great relationship with us. Jersey Joe is just starting to come on board with us. Jersey Joe is a kid who wanted to do a podcast, had no idea, never done one before, had no idea anything about it. But I listened to his voice. He did a couple phone calls with us. I'm like, this dude knows what he's talking about. He's got a great voice for it. He's got a great sound. Let's get him on board. He starts going 5 days a week for us. And now things start building, right? Social media goes up a little bit. Downloads start going up a little bit. Danny, who's actually listening to this right now live, starts really helping us out because Danny Butcher has been in media for years. And the finer caveats that we did not know, we started to put together at that point. So we get here, and it's coming for the midterm election.
Yeah.
And we decide we're going to do election night coverage. We forged this amazing relationship with High Plains and some great contributors. Andrea Kay is going to contribute for some great people.
And so just to kind of a little bit of back on that, too. So we had this awesome people who were going to be helping us out, but we've never done a live election night show. So
or anything,
or right
outside of a 2-hour special, a 2-hour once a week.
So we're talking, and we're like, hey, we have all these people. Like this is amazing. Like I'm super excited. They know what they're doing. What the hell are we gonna do? And we're just like, you know what? We're gonna do what we always do.
We're
just gonna roll because that's kind of what's gotten us this far, and that's really kind of what we did. I mean, we still. Everybody kind of had their roles still and everything else, but we just kind of went in and did it.
So we put it all together.
I'm sure Dan's like, oh my God, I thought you guys actually had a plan.
No, Dan knew.
Yeah.
Dan knew because we've always been honest with Dan.
We've always been honest with all of our listeners.
Yeah, no, we tell everyone we have no idea, but
except for I really think Mattis is a good pick. That shit was all fake earlier, but no, I'm kidding.
So when I say, hey, we're going to do the coverage, he says, great, I'm going to carry it on his former network, now High Plains. What do you guys need from me? I'm like, well, if you could do phone calls, this, that, some social media. He's like, hey, I'll put it on the front page of his former network or his former media outlet. Well, his former media outlet was getting 750,000 hits, 100,000 hits at a time, a million hits, right? So now, like, the pressure's on a little bit because I'm like, we have to produce something, and we have to be good at what we do,
Right.
And we had a contributor at the time who was a little bit difficult.
A lot bit difficult.
Danny's helping in the background like crazy. Hey, you want to move to this segment at this time. Just giving me advice that I needed a sage at the time to figure out how to produce it, and he was amazing with us.
And you're more patient with that difficult
with
person
that other
than I
person,
was.
right?
That's the person I'm thinking about?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but we move forward, and we start the event, no idea what we're doing. Sacco was just a stud when it came to electronics, getting everything done.
Yep.
I think I called Danny 40 times that night when I was
I
off
think
the side.
46 was the official count.
And which is how we foster that relationship more so from just a business relationship into this partnership that we have with High Plains. Hey, and you guys are doing great. Just do this. Help me out. Do that. I'll come on and talk about this. Andrea Kay came on. We just had these great contributors that helping us through the night, and we're calling stuff out as it going. It all of a sudden turned into a real live election night coverage. We're emceeing it. We're covering all the events.
We're being professional for the most part.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Which is weird for us.
Which was very weird for us.
Our contributors, Jersey Joe,
amazing.
were awesome.
Amazing.
And they're throwing stuff at us. They're watching their areas and throwing stuff at us. I have Danny Butcher, who's still in our back pocket, just helping us out every step of the way. And I mean that wholeheartedly. I love the man to death.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, like, it ended that night. And it was almost like, well, we want to do more. Like, we don't want to stop now. This was fun.
Yeah.
And then we found out the response we got from it. How many people listened that night? How much great feedback we got that night. When Danny threw the numbers at us the next couple of days, we were blown away. We couldn't believe it.
I think we got drunk.
Oh, yeah, we did. And then we kind of went through this up and down thing where we wanted to grow, but we didn't know how to grow. We started having like these kind of growing pains things. We had, like I said, we had a couple.
We have careers.
We had careers outside of it.
Yep.
Families, the whole 9 yards. 2014, 1.2 million readers and listeners. Danny just fed that to me in the chat room. So that was sobering for us.
Yeah.
Because we said, and we did well. We thought we did well, and we got a great feedback. So we said, all right, we got to start to grow, and we have to figure out why. We have to pick up our game here on certain things, pick up a game there on certain things.
We have to monetize.
We have to monetize. We have to be a show, too. Because we owe it to these folks who are showing up to listen to at least have a little bit of content.
So one thing I think you kind of skipped over, Sean, is when you were talking about bringing Jersey Joe in and bringing these other folks on. That's when we became a network.
That was
and
really
not
when it
just
launched.
a show. That's really when SHR Media launched, and SHR stands for Sackheads Radio,
right?
Because that's what started it all for us. And the naming is even interesting.
Yeah.
But, SHR Media, Sackheads Radio Media, so that's kind of, hey, we have these other shows. Let's form our own network, and that's really what launched SHR Media.
So who was the first to get onto your network? Was it
Ken.
Jersey Joe?
Ken.
No, it was Sackheads Radio Show.
Well, it was Sackheads first.
All right,
and then
but after
Ken.
Sackheads.
It was Ken.
Yep.
Okay.
And then Jersey Joe. From with us from the beginning. Again, two guys that I'd take bullets for tomorrow.
I'd take him for them tonight.
Or whatever.
I'm not a jerk.
Who had so much support in us and so much faith in us and really let us start to develop and grow. And, of course, I had Danny Butcher, who was doing his show at the time, that he'd allow us to carry his show to help us. It wasn't helping him. It was helping us.
Certainly helping us.
And then all of a sudden he's helping us grow, too, as a business, as a network. Hey, here's what you're looking for. There's some dead weight you got to cut, which we did eventually cut and made business a lot better.
Should have cut it sooner.
Yeah, well.
But I'm a jerk.
We started upping our presence in social media, all this other stuff. Danny's pushing for us on his end, and I keep going back to that, but for a reason. I mean, honestly, if we didn't find Danny when we did, I don't know if we would have been as successful as we have been. Case in point, he just threw me these numbers in the chat room. 2014, we had 1.2 million readers and listeners through his network. High Plains Pundit 2016, I don't think I've ever given you these numbers. 2.3 million.
For election night?
For election night.
That was, I have to tell you, quite frankly, that was one of the best times I've had.
You said 2.3?
Yes. I mean, that's just substantial. And that shows you how much we've grown and how much that relationship's grown. So then we have these other shows who are starting to like trickle in and then getting reached out to. Hey, Blog Talk's giving us a hard time, and I hear you guys are good to work with, all this other stuff. And we kind of brought it onto ourselves to say, hey, we have this setup, we have this studio, and we have these great voices that need an outlet. And we really want to help push that and make that happen. We saw what was going on with mainstream media. We know they were on the decline. We've been calling that for years. We have really said that our medium is going to be bigger than mainstream media was eventually. And we knew that. We could see it coming. We had to learn how to foster it. So we surrounded ourselves with amazing people that we knew would help us do that. And even though the cash flow was not anything for them as well, they still stuck with us, and because they believed too that we could make something out of it. And then this past year, 6 months alone, 5 months since the election, even it's really just started to take off. We're adding 2 live full-time shows Monday through Friday. Our live networking Monday through Friday will start at 9 a.m. on the East Coast and go all the way through to 10 o'clock at night. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, it's going to go through to midnight. Live, in-house production shows. Then we'll have other shows that are in-house produced that aren't live, but they're podcast downloads, radio shows to play. Obviously, the Unpleasant Blind Guy, who's been with us for a while. And it goes on and on. Southern Sense. And all these shows really are why we still do this, why we invest so much blood, sweat, and tears into it. And then we hook up with something like the Patriots Walk that asks us to be their media outlet. It's gratifying, and that's how we got here.
Okay, well, let me understand one thing. Okay,
Yes.
First you got Ken.
Yes.
Then you got Jersey Joe.
Yes.
Then who came on after that?
Annie came on from Southern Sense.
Yeah.
Agador came on, the Unpleasant Blind Guy. We had a couple shows.
Professor.
The Professor here and there. We had a couple other shows come and go here and there. Dan obviously was still broadcasting with us when he was broadcasting. And he has so much else going on. Again, he was broadcasting for a long time, pretty much unable to fit it into his schedule, but he did it just for us, which was pretty substantial. Now he's back 5 days a week. And we started filling those gaps. So those were the core shows, and obviously we're adding 2 more, 3 more. Now that I've mentioned it, we're hoping to add more in the future. And
Did the website? Dan Butcher, if you're listening right now, you did a hell of a job.
yeah,
What a difference that made.
enormous.
You know, I think in closing this out, kind of the natural progression is where do we go from here?
Right.
And you know, I know we're going to be doing. We've already discussed. We're going to be doing more articles. We're going to have more written content to start growing that side of the house as well, along with the shows, like I said, the 3, including yours, BZ, that we're adding to continue to grow. Sean is always pushing to grow our social media presence. And so forth. So we do have some exciting things coming up. Of course, we have Freedom Fest coming up again here in the future, and some other events we're looking at having also.
Start to grow.
Perhaps even hosting events here at the California State Capitol.
Yep.
As a media network. So some things coming up that we're very excited about. But hey, I want to thank you, Sean, for all the hard work you do.
Thank you.
And for the friendship and the partnership that we forged. BZ as well, sir. For
Right, so then this old
having
man
you on
walks into
board.
our lives.
Right.
And has become a sackhead. You know, the future, the sky's the limits. We want this to be, we want to take over media. That's what we want to do. And we think we have the means and the friends to do it. And,
Well, here's the deal. You guys are the future. Terrestrial radio is going away. You have a foot in the door already.
Well, we're putting both feet
and
in.
the transition
Yeah.
is already
And probably
occurring.
an ass.
Probably an ass.
Probably 2 feet and an ass through the door. We just got to wiggle the rest through before people try to slam it on us. And I appreciate it.
Well,
I truly
you're
do.
here first.
And so anyone who's listening wants to find out more, shrmedia.com, at Twitter, at SHR Media Group, Facebook. Like us on Facebook, please. We're trying to really build our Facebook presence. Just search for SHR Media. And make sure you check out High Plains Pundit, because the news from them is just amazing. And the bloviatingzeppelin.net. BZ sitting across from us, who is our newest sack head. And
This has been an amazing trip.
Dude, this is a blast.
What a long, strange
Amazing
trip it's been.
And we're not done yet.
We're not done yet.
Close.
We're just going.
We're not even close.
Imagine when we don't have careers anymore.
Yeah.
Which could be soon.
Well, hey, for me, it could always be tomorrow. So, BZ,
Thank you, sir.
for interviewing us.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it, and I am really happy to be here. Thank you, guys.
It's an honor to have you.
God bless.
That's it from Studio One here on the Sackheads Radio Show, SHR Media. Thank you for joining us.